And am I writing out questions to you?
No.
That's my concern. Okay,
No.
good.
We're going to pause.
Start recording.
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ray Pucci, the president of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our board of directors and the businesses of Delaware County, I want to welcome you to our 51st New York State Senate District Candidate Forum. Joining us this afternoon to speak about the issues that are important to businesses and all of us here in the 51st District. We have the two major party candidates for that seat, Peter Oberacker and Jim Barber. I want to welcome you both to this afternoon and thank you both for participating in this. The format for the next hour will be that each candidate will have up to 5 minutes for opening remarks. And then we have several questions that members and have supplied to us that I will be asking. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes for each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to those questions. We will ask those questions, or I will ask those questions alternately to each of the candidates. And then finally, each candidate will have up to 5 minutes for a summary statement. Before everyone joined us, we did a little way of deciding who goes first. Peter Oberacker will open our session with some opening remarks. Mr. Oberacker.
Thank you, Ray, and I want to thank the Delaware Chamber for the opportunity and for putting on the forum. It's a perfect way to get our message out. So a little bit about me. They say there are two things you should never see being made. One is sausage and the other is laws. And I should know because I've done both. I am the son of a German sausage maker who came over from Frankfurt, Germany in the early 50s. I worked in our family business when I was from 8 years old on and learned from a very early age, rolling up your sleeves, getting to work, not watching the clock is what was required. I am the CEO of our company called Formtech Solutions, Inc. We do research and development and product development for food companies. One of the things I'm extremely proud of is that our corporate offices were located in College Station, Texas. And we moved that, our corporate office to Skanevis, New York back in 2017. And we were kind of bucking the trend, I think, that you see here in New York with companies leaving. It was the first business to actually come into the town of Maryland in almost 35 years. So it's kind of telling, what we're going to be up against as we move forward here into the Senate. My background from a municipality standpoint is I'm a former board member for the town of Maryland, former supervisor for the town of Maryland, and I am the current Otsego County legislator overseeing 4 towns, Otsego County. I chair Public Works for Otsego County, and I also am vice chair of our administration committee, which is like a Ways and Means. Sit on other various PSLA, Public Safety, Budget Committee, and so on. I am a firefighter and a volunteer firefighter, very proud of that, EMS member as well. And it really speaks to something very personal with me. We had an incident with my son where he was injured on a farm, and the incident that happened, tones went out, took an extremely long period of time to get ambulance service to him. We were extremely distressed at that, and one of the avenues and one of the platforms that I really want to push is looking at our EMS, our volunteer, our first responders when I get to Albany. Been married for 34 years to my lovely wife, Shannon. We were high school sweethearts. I have two kids, Derek, who is 28, and my daughter Holly, who is 30, both out of the house. And looking for something to do other than all those other things I just mentioned. I want to be your senator, and I want to represent the values and the people of the 51st District.
Well, thank you, Mr. Oberacker. Mr. Barber, your 5 minutes.
And thank you, Ray, and thank you to the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. Really appreciate this opportunity to, let folks hear from us, and thank you. So my name is Jim Barber. I'm running for the state senate in the 51st district. I'm the lifetime farmer on a 6th generation farm in Schoharie County. Very diversified farm. I've always been, my parents taught me to always be very involved in your community. So my wife and I have tried very hard to do that. Served on many community organizations and committees. I was elected to the school board. And I've also served on many statewide organizations, mainly farm organizations. I've held leadership positions in several of those, elected to the Farm Bureau Board of Directors, president of the Vegetable Growers Association. I also helped form an organization called New York Farms, which worked with a very diverse group of stakeholders, farmers, people against pesticides, New York City Council, the food service industry, and bring that very diverse group together. We knew if we could focus on what our common interests were, instead of just focusing our differences, we could probably achieve something pretty significant. And the fact is that back in the mid-90s, that little group of folks who normally wouldn't even talk to each other on the street created the very first farm to school program in the country. And I think we can see that has been a very, very successful program, but took, bringing folks together from diverse backgrounds, focus on your interest, what do we all, what is everyone's common goal? And that's really how you get things, that's how you get things done. And I also served in government. I served as special assistant to the Commissioner of Agriculture in New York State for 2 years. And I was earned a presidential appointment to head the New York Farm Service Agency for the USDA. And we came in at the height of the recession, and despite a 20% cut in our budget, I'm very proud that my office was able to actually improve the delivery of services to farmers, cutting loan making time in half, improving the review processes, and just finding ways to more efficiently deliver the programs that we needed to deliver. I think looking ahead, upstate and particularly farms can be great partners in environmental challenges ahead of us, clean water, climate change, and addressing the solar, the renewable energy. We need to fix our healthcare system. We know that upstate hospitals and providers are underfunded, and we need to make sure that we have the staff and facilities that we need up here. And we really need to focus on our upstate economy. Let's make this a place where you can afford to live, raise a family, work, run a business, retire. And we need infrastructure that really helps businesses to succeed. We need broadband and cell service, roads, even public transit kind of has to be reimagined in rural areas, but we need to make sure businesses have the resources they need. And most importantly, I'm very focused on creating a fair tax system in this state so that everyone is paying their fair share into the system. New York State has the highest property taxes in the country, which is extremely heavy burden on our rural areas, and they are high because Albany forces the cost of unfunded mandates onto the backs of our county budgets and schools. We can fix that. I have a plan to do that, and let's make sure that going forward, everyone, the folks that are earning their income on Wall Street and speculating are paying a much lower percentage of their income in taxes than we do through our paychecks or our cash registers. So we have an opportunity to fix that now, and I want to make sure that we can get that done. So thank you very much. I look forward to the debate.
Terrific. Thank you both. The first question goes to Mr. Barber. Well, they'll go to both of you. Mr. Barber, you have the first opportunity to respond. The recent public-private partnership here in Delaware County to extend broadband service to underserved rural communities has in large part been a tremendous success. However, here in Delaware County, it is becoming clearer that the lack of reliable and continuous cell phone service is actually more of a problem for most residents, businesses, and visitors. Cell service providers are slow to act due to long payback to expand service in sparsely populated areas. In the meantime, we continue to fall behind technologically relative to other areas. Why do you think this is not being addressed, and what would you do to help solve that problem?
Right, I think, and I've actually been bringing up this point a few times, because when I first started in this race, I would hear about, the lack of broadband service as being, a real issue across the district. And of course, that's true because, especially you can see in the COVID, you can't work from home, you can't run a business. The kids trying to do school remotely at a disadvantage. But I knew right away that also cell service is a critical missing link because, I can't drive very far across the district. I can't even actually start a conversation hands-free in the car because you keep running out. So, and it's a public safety issue. So I think we really need to treat it as a public safety issue. When you have first responders going out into areas where they don't have cell service, they can't call back to the base. They can't call the place where they're going. So the state really needs to step up and figure out how we fill in these gaps in the cell service coverage, as well as broadband coverage. Our local telecom companies, Midtel, Margatel, Delhi-Tel, they're all doing excellent work, filling in those gaps and helping, our local areas to get up to speed in this modern era. So broadband and cell service need to be treated like, rural electrification. And, it's a basic necessity of life and doing business now. Let's get that done.
Mr. Oberacker, the same question to you.
Sure. Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to get serious. There's been so much talk about it. We know the issues. We know how important it is, and yet we still haven't been able to follow through. So the first point of order is to get serious about it to make it happen. So how do we do that? Well, number one, as chair of public works for Otsego County, I've done that. I have actually worked with the cell companies. I have negotiated contracts with those cell companies to get cellular service in areas of Otsego County where we had zero. And that's what it takes. It takes someone who has the contacts, who's been through this process before, who can bring those people together and to basically facilitate that process moving forward. Broadband is very important, as we know now, due to COVID, the distance learning, the ability to connect. And I take it again personally because you're potentially looking at a seated New York State senator who would not have broadband at my house. So again, you need somebody that has done this. When we were in Andes, when we were traveling the 51st and in Andes, and being a first responder and a firefighter, we have a program called I Am Responding, and it's an excellent program that lets anybody that's coming on scene into the firehouse, who's on their way, what's going on. I can basically plan my attack for whatever situation presents itself, and they cannot take advantage of this system because they have zero cell service. So again, I think when we talk broadband and cell, they're kind of at the, hitched at the hip. We need to get serious about it. We need someone who's done it. And as a county legislator in Otsego County, I've done that, and I can bring that to the people of the 51st.
Thank you. Mr. Oberacker, this next question starts with you. Housing has been perhaps one of the biggest challenges that we face here in rural counties, and not just here in Delaware County, but throughout rural counties throughout your district, especially those located within the watershed for the city of New York. The cost of developing housing and lodging is inflated due to the heightened environmental compliance that stem from the watershed regulations. This lodging shortage has caused an opportunistic shift from affordable long-term residences to rather expensive short-term rentals, which has made the situation even more difficult. Employers across the region are telling us that they have jobs open but can't find workers. And wage earners also say that many, and particularly our younger people, would settle down here but can't find an affordable place to live. What do you see as a way to approach this problem?
Number one, this speaks again to the mandates that come down from Albany, that basically handcuff and impede local municipalities. Again, as a former supervisor, I've seen what those mandates do, and I've also seen how that has affected our community in Skenevis as almost as you have, Ray, so purposely put out there, as a bedroom community. We've seen the raising of rates, again, affordable housing becoming less and less. So number one, it's mandated. We should release some of those mandates. We should relax some of those mandates. And again, we need to get the stakeholders into this process. We need to listen to what's going on at Main Street level, if you will. And to help, again, I'll use the word facilitate an answer. So, what is that answer? Looking at those affordable housing. Number one is looking at some of the areas that are in distress and seeing what we can do to improve them. There is, as a rising tide, all boats, rise. Let's look at some of the areas in these municipalities where somebody normally may not want to look to relocate or to put a newer home at. There's the old homesteading type of philosophy. Bring somebody in, let them kind of work the land a little bit, give them maybe some incentives to do such, and see if that would help improve and bring more people in. One of the programs I did as a supervisor was called the Phoenix Project, actually in Skenevis, where we actually encouraged folks to improve their houses simply by painting, picking up, things of that nature. And we actually recognize them as a house of distinction or a property of distinction. And I think that goes a long way. It's easy. It can be done quickly. And again, I think with an overall premise of getting folks engaged to want to move into those areas.
Mr. Barber, same question to you, sir.
Right. Well, good. Thank you. And yeah, I am aware that the housing issues in the Ulster and Delaware area and in the watershed, and it's not only for the folks who live there full time and trying to make be able to find housing there, but also I met with the folks, the Coalition for Bel Air, and their concern is there's not enough beds and rooms for the growing tourist industry in the area, which of course brings in a lot of sales tax and tourist money. So we need tourist beds. We also need that affordable housing, and this is probably an area where the state can help localities under this pressure to how do you invest in affordable housing units that will actually help grow the economy, because you need that workforce there. They can't afford, the available housing now. So it's a way to create jobs in the area, building affordable housing. The state may need to help step in. And I heard Mr. Oberacker talk about unfunded mandates, but I have not heard him talk about a plan to actually deal with, how do you relieve those unfunded mandates from the counties? I have a plan to do that. And we have a broken tax system in this state that pushes all those unfunded mandates down onto the counties, onto the property taxes, because Albany doesn't want to fund them. We can create a revenue stream just by having a fair tax system. So the folks that are financial traders, all the activity going on Wall Street that's currently taxed at a much lower rate than we pay in our paycheck. They have gimmicks, loopholes, rebates. Why are they paying less than the workers that are earning a paycheck, or a small business earning their living through the cash register? Let's have a fair system. So everyone is paying what they can fairly afford on their income. That's all I'm asking for. Let's put that system in place. And then Albany will have the revenue it needs to take these mandates off the backs of our local homeowners, our local businesses. That's how you make businesses thrive, by making this a place where they can afford to actually do business. And you can help reduce the cost of housing by lowering the cost of owning a house. So I have a plan to actually fix that. So let's not just say Albany should take the mandates off. Let's say, here's a plan for making that happen, and we can do it.
Well, Mr. Barber, you anticipated the next question very well. By the way, I want to remind everyone that if you do have a question, please put that into the chat box area. We're screening those questions as they're coming in. Questions that we're posing right now are questions that have been submitted previously by business owners and others. Let's talk about unfunded mandates, because often businesses pay a disproportionate share of local property taxes. And we often talk about unfunded mandates from Albany. What would your plan be to reduce the level of unfunded mandates that our counties and local municipalities need to find the funding to support? And again, we start with Mr. Barber.
Right. So I basically kind of laid out the broad concept of the plan. I know Mr. Oberacker likes to say we don't have a tax problem in this state, we have a spending problem. The reality is we have a big tax problem. It's unfair tax system. Again, there's so much economic activity going on among the folks who are doing the best during this COVID crisis, during the COVID shutdown. Stock market is doing tremendously well, and the folks earning their income and their wealth from those corporations, those companies, that activity are not paying their share. And there's a very simple one. It's called the stock transfer tax, which is the sales tax on the sale of stocks. That was actually on the books. It's been on the books since 1905. In 1981, for some reason, we're collecting it, but we give it back. We're rebating it back to people who clearly don't need it now. And most of that income comes from outside the state. And we're proposing a 0.25% rate, which is like $2.50 on 1,000. Right now, London has a rate twice that high, and they're the second largest trading market in the world. So all we have to do is stop rebating this money back to the people who don't need it. There's $13 billion in income generated primarily from folks outside New York State, because it's on stock trades. Most of the people trading stocks in Wall Street don't live in New York State. So here's a way that we can actually capture income, a revenue stream that will then take the burden. Albany can pay for these mandates. They should have been doing it all along. they push it down onto the counties because they don't want to do this hard, they don't want to upset their friends on Wall Street, I guess, or whatever it is. But I have upset friends on or somebody's friends on Wall Street, because I had a billionaire running $120,000 worth of tax ads against me because he likes the tax system just the way it is. He doesn't want to change it. He's making a lot of money on Wall Street, and he doesn't want to see me in the Senate putting my proposal forward. So I think that's my plan. There's clearly a way to do it. All it takes is the courage to do it, and we can make it happen, because taking care of Medicaid and schools and education is important to everybody in the state, and a plan that does that for everyone will be successful. So,
Mr. Oberacker, unfunded mandates, how are you gonna handle those? How are you gonna control those?
Well, I think number one, I think I understand the unfunded mandates far better than Mr. Barber gives me credit for. Being on the Otsego County budget, I've actually seen, and as a former town supervisor, I have seen what those unfunded mandates do and how they affect local budgets and local municipalities. The first thing we could do to work in unfunded mandates is to basically get away from a Democratic majority. If we've watched our Democrats and our liberal Democrats from downstate passing these mandates, passing these laws that they are forcing down on us, if we were to, I think, address that issue, that's one point to address those unfunded mandates, is actually looking at, again, getting not a majority of Democrats in Albany. Now, it's interesting that Mr. Barber brings up about tax cuts in one voice and then a sales tax in another. So I'm a little confused as to whether we're talking about a sales tax or are we talking about a tax cut. In essence, what you're doing, if you're going to put a sales tax on the sale and transfer of stocks, you're just adding another tax to average New Yorkers. My 401k, which is heavily invested in stock, would be affected by it. So again, I think it speaks to not fully understanding how Albany works, number one. I do talk about the spending side because I understand that, again, from being a budget candidate or on the budget committee for Otsego County. And I understand that the spending side, we have more control over. We can control where we spend our money, how we spend our money. And in this day and age with COVID and with the reduction in your revenue side of the equation without going to taxes, you're going to have to learn to spend your money wisely. Your return on investment is what we're looking at getting.
Thank you both. Our next question, Mr. Oberacker, starts with you. As the pandemic was gaining ground in March, the New York State Legislature granted emergency powers that permitted the governor to temporarily suspend laws or create new ones. It also ceded full budget control to the executive branch. Now, while the COVID-19 remains a real concern across New York State, the threat of the virus overwhelming our healthcare network has been greatly diminished. When do you think the New York State Senate and Assembly should reclaim their constitutional authority, and what steps would you take to advance that process?
Ray, that should have been done yesterday. In the beginning, I have actually said on the record that Albany did a good job of managing COVID, and there were so many unknowns to it. We didn't know where it was going, what the numbers were to be, and how devastating this could have been. So to take the defensive position that they did, I actually agree with. Okay, now it's time to move on. It's time to rescind Governor Cuomo's authority. It was meant to be a two-system. It was meant to have both chamber, the Assembly, and the Senate to govern the state. We are improving our numbers. We know what it takes to prevent the spread of COVID with masks, social distancing, all the sanitation steps that we've put into place. The fact that we have testing that you can get in 15 minutes has shown that we are ahead of the game. We know what our numbers are, and it's now time to open up. I hear so many businesses in the 51st saying, I need someone, I need an advocate to help us reopen safely, okay? And I believe, as I said before, in our company, we have a HACCP plan. It's a hazard analysis critical control point. And what it basically does is break down any system, any problem, any process to its most minute point. And at each one of those points, you ask yourself, is there contamination? If there is, what is it? How is it? Where does it go? And how do we remedy it? If we were to take that approach, HACCP, and apply it to COVID-19, we can reopen New York. The people of the 51st can get back to some sort of normalcy. And we don't have to raise taxes because we're going to be getting some of our sales revenue from our sales tax that's there coming in.
Mr. Barber, how do we, when's the control go back to the legislature?
Right. Well, they should have done it last summer. I know that they started that process this summer and got cold feet or whatever and decided not to take back their responsibility. So I've been saying this for a few months now. Yeah, and I agree completely. I think that it was handled pretty well in the beginning because we knew so little. It's hard to go back and say what was and wasn't necessary. But we understand a lot about the virus now. We can track it down. We have testing. The legislature represents every part of the state, the rural areas, urban areas. Those are the folks that should be in on the discussion, deciding how we proceed forward from here, so that we can have a plan that actually does, make sense and help us get open. And if we just pay attention, follow the CDC guidelines, and we're careful, we can control the outbreaks. We saw in Oneonta that they had 700 students, but they were able to contain it, so we didn't have a lot of 700 students tested positive. We didn't have a lot of community outbreak. So it is certainly possible to do this. And the legislature should have taken their authority back 3 or 4 months ago. They're just, I think they're happy having someone else take all the responsibility for it, but that's not the way I operate. I want to go back to a comment Mr. Oberacker made. He said, I never said he didn't understand mandates. He just doesn't have a plan for how to deal with them. And to try to say the mandates are a result of a Democratic administration, I've been fighting this for 40 years with Farm Bureau, through Republican governors, Republican Senate. The Republicans controlled the Senate all that time. We had several Republican governors. They didn't do anything to reduce our mandate load. So, and the sales tax on stocks is not impacting your average New Yorkers the way you're playing it out to be. The impact on a 401k is minimal. 80% of the trading on Wall Street now is through this electronic margin trading. It's not even paying attention to the value of the companies anymore. They're just trading on margins. This would actually make traders, pay attention to what they're investing in, and you take those mandates off all money. You have this tax revenue stream. It actually improves the business climate. It creates jobs upstate. You're going to have more income tax because you're going to have better jobs, more businesses upstate. When you take these unfunded mandates off the shoulders of schools and programs. I understand this unfunded mandate impact on schools. I served on the school board. It's horrendous.
5 seconds.
Terrific. Thank you both. Next question starts again with Mr. Barber. A recent survey conducted by the New York chapter of the National Federation of Independent Businesses, NFIB, reported that 90% of small businesses have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and 87% have experienced a decline in sales volume. Clearly, ensuring the viability of our small businesses while continuing to protect public health must be a priority. I think we'll all agree with that. Will you support efforts to defend small businesses from the consequences of state and federal emergency actions including measures to freeze unemployment insurance experience ratings, passing good faith liability protections, prevent workers' compensation cost increases, and create tax credits or grant programs to assist small businesses with COVID-19 capital costs. And obviously that's more than just a yes or no question.
I don't know, it's pretty much of a yes. I mean, it's like, yeah, we need to do what we can to help support, the small businesses in the state. And the reality is, the federal government has the most capacity to help the states handle this crisis. And again, the tax program I have proposed will help quickly dig the state out of the tremendous debt they're in, so we can free up resources to help our small businesses and to do all those things that we can help. In this country, when there's an economic downturn, we're very focused on bailing out the big companies, the ones too big to fail, on the backs of the normal taxpayers. I mean, that's kind of like socialism in reverse. We socialize corporate debt, but not the folks who are actually suffering the consequences. And I was going to take the airlines right now. The federal government is trying to bail out the airlines. They employ 750,000 people. The food service industry employs 14 million people. What are we doing for the folks on the ground, the actual grassroots street level businesses that that need to survive? And I understand fully well that businesses and farms pay way more than their share in property taxes, which is why I'm so focused on relieving that burden, because farms and small businesses, for every dollar they pay in, I think it's they pay $1.30 for like every dollar of services that they receive, and residences are lower. It's like 50% for every dollar they pay in. So businesses and farms are currently carrying the unshared burden of property taxes. So the more we can do to relieve the cost side of it is very important. Plus, what are we going to do looking down the future to help our farms and businesses really capitalize on what now we recognize is the need for a much more localized production and delivery system, so that when we have these big disruptions, it's not impacting the entire supply chain. So yeah, we need to do everything we can to support our local businesses, because they're the lifeblood of the upstate economy. And that's what's creating the jobs. That's what's generating the revenue. That's what creates the tourism. So we need to make sure that we pay attention to the folks that are generating the bedrock of the economy.
Mr. Oberacker, the same question to you.
Again, thanks, Ray. The thing I'm extremely proud of is I do carry the NFIB endorsement. I do carry the Upstate Jobs Party endorsement, and I do carry the Unshackle New York endorsement as well. And I think that speaks profoundly to who I am as a businessman and as your potential next senator. Those items that you outlined are so important to a small business such as myself, and even more so, I found out by when we came from Texas, which I think we could all agree is a business-friendly state, to New York, which tends to kind of stifle our ability to have cash flow. The items that you outlined would helps every small business with cash flow. It helps us with the ability then to promote our business, when it comes to inventory. I mean, I can go on with plethora of other issues. And coming to New York was actually an eye-opener. I tell a quick story about, just to give you an idea of how New York is somewhat not business friendly. It took us, when we were reapplying for our status as a corporation, I sent the application off to the Department of State. They said we'd have it back in about 4 days. At day 10, I went up to Albany to try to find what was the matter. They said it wasn't filled out correctly. I asked them what was not filled out correctly on the form, and the individual behind the counter said there was no dot at the end of ink, where I put Form Tech Solutions Inc., there was no dot. And if that doesn't speak to what we are talking about, we need a businessman in Albany. We need a businessman that has a business here in Albany. And I'm going to tell you the other thing we need to do. We need to reward those businesses that are staying. All being able to be done, all I would say within the realm of possibility, and especially when we're talking about rewarding our businesses, that's the foundation that we're going to build upstate New York in the economy.
Thank you. We're down to our last round robin question here for both of you, and I've set aside some of the ones that have come in previously to one that was posted through chat. Would you each identify one area of concern for New Yorkers that you believe both Democrats and Republicans might come together on in order to move New York forward in a positive and united fashion or direction? Mr. Oberacker, that first goes to you.
Very simply, Ray, I think it's bail reform. I believe we can all agree that a criminal knows no political affiliation or knows no political dogma. I mean, he would just as soon carry out, or he or she would carry out their negative social impact on anybody. So I think bail reform would be an area that we can all agree. The exercise has failed. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we do many things. We institute policies, laws. We institute a lot of things that we find out later do not work. The issue becomes when we don't admit that they don't work. And there is no doubt that this disastrous, dangerous program is affecting all New Yorkers, spread across all political lines, all socioeconomic lines. So if it was me, I think it's bail reform. And I think once you start to find that common ground and you do reach across the aisle and we come together, that's the beginnings of relationships. And when you build a relationship, then we can move on to maybe some of the harder, more intense issues out there.
Mr. Barber, what would that one area of concern be for you?
So I think I'm going to go back to, removing the unfunded mandate burden off of our counties. I can't think of a single upstate representative who wouldn't say, yes, let's deal with the highest property taxes in the country. And that is really, that's almost a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Because when you take those unfunded mandates off the back of the counties and our schools, you're going to lower your property taxes so that you can afford to live here, you can afford to retire here, you can afford to run a business here. And you're going to have resources locally that you can actually invest in your first responders, in your law enforcement, in community services. And we get to decide where we're going to spend that money. We're not sending it all to Albany, then hoping they give us some back to where they're making the decisions on what we get back. So let's have a system that's fair. Albany should pay for all these mandates they push down on our schools and our counties. I cannot imagine a single upstate representative, Republican or Democrat. I keep saying that the issues of upstate are not Republican or Democrat, they're upstate issues. This is what we all need to deal with. I've been dealing with these things for 40 years, and we finally have an opportunity to do it. And I don't understand the resistance to wanting to have a fair system so that we, the homeowners, businesses in rural New York, are not subsidizing the folks who clearly don't need to be subsidized income on the backs of our property taxes. We have a clear, easy way to deal with this. And I really think we need to move forward and take care of that. It's yeah. So
Thank you.
I think I've said a lot about that, but we clearly have a means at hand, and we're fortunate that we have this Wall Street in New York City within the boundaries of the state, because we can generate a tremendous stream of revenue from outside New York State, simply because we're the place where Wall Street wants to be. If they didn't want to be there, they would have moved out years ago, because we have the highest taxes in this country. So this is where they've decided that they're going to be. We can, tap into the tremendous income being generated there through sales from folks, outside the country even. But it's a stream. Let's make it so that we can afford to live here, retire here, raise our family here. That's what I'm after. I'm sure everyone on both sides of the aisle would approve.
Thank you. Time now for summary statements. And Mr. Barber, you get to go first for this 5 minutes summary statement.
Sorry.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, just to kind of recap a little bit that what was said earlier, and I guess, and this is for Pete, so I guess if you could answer this, when I looked up Form Tech Solutions, I see it was registered in New York as a foreign company, so I'm not really sure what that means. So I guess my question is, where is Form Tech Solutions located, and how many employees do you actually employ in New York State? Because, as a farm for, I've been farming for 40 years. We've employed hundreds of people over the years here in New York State, and I certainly understand, the challenges of running a business here. So I'm very focused on how we make this New York State a better business climate. But I'd like to say, voters have an important decision to make now. We have a lot of powerful issues confronting upstate communities. We need someone with a vision, define solutions. I've demonstrated I clearly have that vision. We need someone with the skills to build alliances. Again, I've demonstrated through my background, New York farms, working in USDA, and building cross references or cross alliances with New York City. I have those skills to build alliances across very, very diverse backgrounds. And we need someone to be an effective voice for upstate New York. And I can be that voice, because in order to be the voice for upstate New York, you need to be at the table with the Senate leadership where those decisions are actually being made. And I'll be at that table. Jim Seward, for 30 years, he was very effective because he was a member of the majority party. And he had a seat at the table where his party was making the decisions on, where allocations are made. And just a very cold, hard fact. And that brought me to the decision over 14 months ago that I had to run for state office, because we no longer had that representative in the majority party, with a seat at the table. And I know, that's what we needed, because, that's where the decisions about the future of New York are being made. If we don't have farm representation there, I would be the only farmer in the state Senate. If we don't have a stronger representation from Democrats within, rural Democrats within the majority party, then upstate is not going to have a voice in what's going on in the future. So we need to make sure we have a voice in Albany at the table where the decisions are being made, so that we can, have a place where New York businesses, rural businesses, can actually survive. And I knew, farmers, they're the bedrock of our economy upstate. I've proven, I've spent my lifetime working on farm issues, and we need that industry to flourish if we're going to, actually have a good, strong economy in upstate. I have the background and experience to represent everyone in this district. I'm always out listening to everyone, even if they don't agree with me. And if I know what I'm going to tell them, they don't want to hear. I have one story, I tell it to everybody, and I have tremendous support from all across the board, both sides of the aisle, both parties, because they just want a really honest, straightforward opinion. So you know, I'll be there in Albany fighting for upstate priorities, upstate values. I'll serve the taxpayers and their families with every ounce of my energy because that's how I'm built. That's how a farm survives for 6 generations. I'm going to show up every day to work. So if you want someone who brings the common sense of a farmer to the Senate, who work for you every single day, I'm going to show up to work every day and make sure that we get our work done. Because when I worked in Syracuse, I left my farm. I moved to Syracuse because that's where I had to go to work. So that's how dedicated I am to serving the taxpayers. When you work for the taxpayers every day, you go to work and earn your living that way. So yeah, I'm dedicated to making sure that what folks are paying me for, I'm earning. So if you want someone in Albany who's going to represent you every day, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Mr. Oberacker, 5-minute summary statement for you.
Again, thank you, Ray, for the opportunity to talk to the chamber and to those listening. You know, it's interesting. I listened to my opponent talk about this table in some back room someplace. I was wondering if you could tell me where that is. You know, is this backroom dealing? Is this what we're up against in Albany? Is this where we've gotten the most increased tax rates of the country, disastrous bail reform, the attack on our 2A rights, and defunding the police? If that's where that table is, and if that's where that back room is, I don't want to know where it is, because I'm going to bring things to Albany. We're going to do it in the light. We're going to bring this to the floor of the Senate. We're going to bring light to all these deals that we're talking about. We're going to build relationships across the aisle, as I've done in Otsego County with a split board. And you know what? We're also going to have a businessman there. We're going to have a businessman who's got a plan. I work off of a to-do list, signpost, as I call it. When we reach those signposts, we evaluate where we are. We work towards that in a very efficient manner. You know, it's again, a county legislator, a former town supervisor, and current businessman. I think if you were to look at those traits, that is the beginnings of who we want to represent the values, to represent those in the 51st. And as I've traveled around the 51st, which again we've alluded to is a huge district of 9 counties, and I've come across all strata of people from economic backgrounds. The one thing that they do say is that they want someone to carry those values, to express those values, and to do it in the light of day. And that's what I will bring to the Senate 51st District. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for an informative and very interesting past hour. Just for everyone's who's listening, we have been recording the past hour, have been recording this event. We will be posting that to our Delaware County Chamber Facebook page in just a few minutes. Please share that. Please watch it again. If you came in the middle of it, please watch that in its entirety. Also want to remind everyone that early voting starts in New York State this Saturday. That's October 24th. That will run through Sunday, November 1st. Election day certainly is November 1st. Please, 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 wherever it is. When did I say?
November 1st.
Oh, I'm sorry. Election day is November 3rd. And please, wherever it is that you need to go and vote, please do so. Let's exercise that franchise. One last reminder, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we are hosting the Delaware County Chamber and our friends at the Sullivan County Chamber will be hosting another candidate forum. Tomorrow is for the 42nd New York State Senate district, and that will feature the incumbent Jen Metzger and her challenger Mike Martucci. So that's tomorrow morning at 10. Again, my thank yous to Peter Oberacker and Jim Barber. We wish you both success, and whoever it is that may be representing us in Albany on January 1st, we look forward to building that relationship that we've had these many years with Senator Seward. So thank you both for participating. Thank you all for viewing in. We hope to see you again. And as we always say, anytime we conclude one of our events here at the Delaware County Chamber, remember, we are stronger together. So thanks again.
I appreciate it.